Hello, my name is Carl Surrey and this is a video tutorial for two Facebook groups, first being fans of Serif software and the second Affinity Designer and Photo group. And in this tutorial I want to look at recoloring a black and white image. Now in my own group that I run, which is fans of Serif software, I did do a written tutorial for this for when Serif only did like PhotoPlus, and I did also make a video for PhotoPlus. So this is like an updated version of those tutorials, but this time for Affinity Photo. Now I know there are many tutorials out there showing you how to recolor black and white images, but some of them will show you one way and some will show you a different way. So I just want to try and quickly have a quick look at both or various ways of doing this project, and you can then use the one that suits your particular style. So we need an image to work on, and the one I'm going to use is this one of my mother, me, how embarrassing this is, but me sitting on my mother's lap when I was a baby, and my brother standing on the chair. And this all sort of partly came about because recently my brother sent me a picture and said to me could I recolor it for him, which I did do, and then it sort of made me think, well, I haven't done a tutorial for Affinity Photo. So I will just crack on. So before I do any recoloring, there is one thing I do want to point out, is that if you open up a black and white image, and up here in the color charts you are getting all the colors that are available. That means although it is black and white, it was saved as an RGB image. But if you open a black and white image and all of the color things are just grey and black and white, this has been saved in the grayscale format, which means that you won't be able to recolor it as it stands, because all you colors you have available are white, grey and black. No matter what you do, sort of on the face of it, you cannot color it. But the way around that is to come up to the document menu and then come to color format, and as you can see this has been saved in grayscale. So if you just click on RGB, this will then make the colors available, and then you can then carry on and color it. So I just quickly wanted to point that out. So coming back to this image that I'm going to color, like I said, there are a couple of ways of doing this. The first way is the way I did it in the old PhotoPlus tutorial, and that is first to make a blank layer above the background. You could paint directly onto the background, but it is always better and safer to paint onto a blank layer, and then that way if you do make any mistakes it's sort of slightly easier to backtrack. So what we want is the paintbrush tool, which at the moment is a bit too big, so I use the left square bracket key to reduce the size, and I will just increase the opacity up to 75%. Hardness I've got set on 0 at the moment, but I may alter that in a minute. And we need a colour. Like with many old black and white images, I doubt there's many people out there that know what the colours of the clothes or whatever you are. I mean, I have no memory of what colour my mother put me in to wear in this outfit. So you've got license to choose whichever colour you like. So I'm going to pick a blue colour. We'll try a light blue to start with, and then it's just a case of painting over the area that you want to recolor. And I'm not going to be as fussy as I should be here, because I'm just trying to do this as quick as possible, just to give you the idea of what you can do if you take your time and do it properly. So I'll just reduce the brush size a bit to come up and do this part of the hat up here and the edge, and then a bit of the arm under there. So like I said, it's not a perfect job, and I know that it could be better, but like I said, I'm just doing this for speed. So once you're happy with the area that you've painted over, we now need to change the blending mode of this layer. Now, I find personally that the colour blending mode works quite well, which is quite a long way down the list. So you click on colour and that blends it in quite well. I do believe that overlay can work quite well sometimes. The overlay is not too bad. Soft light. So depending on the sort of look that you're after, choose your blending mode accordingly. So I'm going to stick with colour. I'm just going to have a quick zoom in a bit and just see if there's any bits I may have missed, and just go over that. But again, I'm not being too fussy because I'm doing this more for speed. Right, I'll press Ctrl and 0 to come out again. So that is one way of doing recolouring of a black and white image, and I would advise having a different colour on a different layer every time, because if for example I then went ahead and sort of, say for I did this, my brother's suit in red, if I had the red and blue colours on the same layer, but I wanted the blue to be in the colour blending mode and the red to be in the overlay blending mode, I couldn't do that because they're on the same layer. Similarly, if I wanted to lower the opacity of the colour of just the blue one, for example, and the red one I wanted at 100%, you couldn't do it that way either. So it's, in my opinion, always best to do different colours on different layers. Now, another thing I would also suggest you do, and you don't have to do this, is make yourself a new document, and then just add a pixel layer, and the paintbrush, I need to sample that colour actually. Let me change this back to normal, and then I will just click on this eyedropper and hold the control button and come over and select that colour, and then that colour will remain next to the eyedropper. So if I click on that, that will now be the colour I'm going to paint on here, and I'm going to make the opacity 100% on this, and I'm just going to paint on here. Not 100% certain why I'm getting a yellow outline, but because I'm doing this a bit too quickly and not paying attention. But the whole point of this is, if you've got a long project that you may be doing this over 2 or 3 days, or you're just doing a bit here and there, and you do a bit one week and not the next, you're not going to remember the settings for the colours that you pick. So if you make yourself a little colour chart board and put a sample of each colour on here, you can always come back and sample it again without having to try and guess or remember the settings that you had. So you may also just want to add a bit of text and just say what it is, and that way you will remember what the different colours are, and you can quickly just sample them. So going back to this image here, and I'll put this back to the colour blending mode. I want to look at a different way of doing the same thing. So like I said, we're going to make this into a red suit that my brother is wearing, but this time we are going to use an adjustment layer. So if you come to adjustments, one of the options is recolor. So when you click on that, it will open up the recolor adjustment panel, and by default it will start off in the red range, which is where I want it to be anyway, roughly. I can alter the shade of red either now or a bit later, but I'll pretty much leave it where it is. And if I come back to the layers, you can see that it has added the adjustment as a new layer, and it has added it with a layer mask. So I'll just press the X to get rid of that adjustment panel, and the layer mask is currently white, and the white will allow all of the adjustment to come across the whole image. Now you could sort of paint black onto this layer mask and sort of hide certain areas, but depending on the area that you're trying to colour, as this is quite a small area, it's not like a vast amount of sky or something like that, I'm going to invert this layer mask and change it into a black layer mask, and to do that I just need to press Ctrl and I, so that will hide the recolor adjustment, and now we've got the blue back. So what I need to do now is to paint white onto the layer mask, so I need to select white as the foreground colour, and then it's just a case of painting onto this area that you want, in whichever colour you've picked, to bring the colour adjustment that we made earlier through. And again, I'm going to do this fairly quickly. Nearly there. Right, so like before, I can change the blending mode of this adjustment. Let's have a look at overlay first. No, don't like that. Soft light. Not too bad. It makes it look more brown. And colour. It's a bit too orange. So I think I'll go with soft light on this one. And if there's any areas that you've gone over a bit too much, all you need to do is to paint black back onto that layer mask. I need to get black back as my foreground colour. Now I have made a keyboard shortcut, but if you haven't done that, you will have to sort of just click down here and get the things back to black. But like I said, I've made a keyboard shortcut to revert these back to black and white, and I can just paint black now and remove any areas where I have maybe gone over the area that I don't want any red paint to be on. Right, so that is two different ways of recoloring a black and white image, either by doing a new pixel layer and painting directly onto that pixel layer, or using the recolor adjustment. And I think it's probably best to invert the layer mask 9 times out of 10 and then paint white onto that inverted layer mask. And so there's two different ways of doing that. Now when it comes to skin colours, you could probably sort of pretty much guess a colour, but I find it personally better if you do a Google search and you just put in skin tone charts, you will find hundreds if not thousands of skin charts, various types, and the one I'm going to use is this one here, which is open here. So it just gives you like various types of like African, Asian and Caucasian skin types. So again, I just need to hold down the control key, click on the color dripper and drag it out and pick a color. I'll go with that one. Come back to my image, and that color will now be the one selected here, and I can just click on that. And this time what I'll do is I'll go for the layer option and then just paint. And what I will do now, I will from the start I will change this to color, and then I will just paint over any skin areas. And obviously if you had a group picture with people with different colours and shades of skin, you may want to put each one individually onto different layers, depending on what you want to do. Right, well, I must admit I did forget to add the red colour to my little colour palette that I was making up here. So as you can see, you can build up a colour palette that you can use later on. So just make sure that you've not missed a hand or a bit of skin that's showing through, And what I will do on this one, I'll just drop the opacity slightly. Here we go, down to about 68%. Okay, I just want to have a quick look at a variation on the two ways that I've just shown you. And the first one, I'm going to make a new pixel layer, and then I just need a selection tool, and I'm going to go with the pen tool, which is found with the node tool, or you can just press P. And I'm going to go with smart mode just to make this slightly easier. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to zoom in a bit first. Let's try that. So I can make a slightly better selection. And again, I'm probably doing this a bit too quickly. It's not that perfect, as you can see, but not my finest bit of selecting. Right, I'll press Control and 0 to zoom out again. And once you've made your selection, if you just click on the selection button here at the top, it will make a selection area of where you have selected. You can refine that selection by coming to the select menu and coming down to feather, and then maybe just feather it very slightly. It's probably easier to just type in so like 1 pixel, so it just feathers it slightly. So now if you get your paintbrush and you select a colour that you want this to be, and the London Transport logo is a red circle, let's find a nice bright red. I'll lower the brush size. And now when I paint, it will only paint that selected area, so I can paint as mad as I like over the whole area, and it will only paint within that selected area. Everything else is safe. So it is just a slight variation on what I did with the blue outfit, and then you can then just change the blending mode. Again, I'll probably go with colour, and then just press Control and D to get rid of that selection area. Right, okay, if I was doing this properly, I would have selected both halves of that red circle and done them both at the same time, but I'm just doing this for speed. What I will just quickly do is just put that back onto normal for the moment, and I'm going to sample the colour, come to my colour swatch thing and change the brush to the colour I've just sampled, and opacity is 100%. Just increase this. Alright, and then I'll come to the text, and let's call this London Transport logo, and come back to my image, and I'll remake that into the color blending mode. Right, so moving on to the second slight variation, which is the variation using selections and the adjustment. So I need to make another selection. So again, I'm going to use the pen tool, and just to get rid of this previous selected area here, I'm just going to make another pixel layer, although it won't actually make it on this layer, but I can delete that in a minute. It's just to get rid of the box that was up there. At the moment I've got snapping off. I think that's off, because when I'm making a selection, sometimes snapping can be a bit of a pain because it tries to snap to the selection sticks to the snapping lines. So I'm just going to start my selection, press Ctrl and Z because that didn't go as well as I hoped. Now I freely admit to not being that good with the pen tool, as you can clearly see, but this is only for speed, so I'm hoping you will forgive my poor selection technique. Like I said, I'm not very good at making selections. That will have to do. I'm not very good at this, I'm afraid. So I'm going to make a selection of that area that I have there now, and what I'm going to do now is to add the adjustment, which is the recolor. And as you can see, because that area was selected before I selected recolor adjustment, it will only add the adjustment to the area selected. So I can then pick the color of blue that I want to go through the middle of in this selection, and then I can press Ctrl and D to get rid of the selection area, and then I can come back to my layers and pick a blending mode. Let's try overlay this time. Overlay. I'll put it on overlay, and then I will just reduce the opacity, and then I'll zoom out. Now I know that is a very terrible selection around my mother's hair and that in general, but you get the idea of what it is I'm trying to get across, is that you can, there are two main ways to recolor a black and white image, be it make a new pixel layer, paint the color onto it, or use the recolor option and paint onto the layer mask to either make it show through or to hide it. Or you can then make a selection of and use those selections in conjunction with either painting or using the recolor adjustment. I'm sorry if this has been a bit disjointed, but I've had a few technical problems and I've had to sort of restart a few times. so I do apologize for that, but you get the idea of how to recolor the black and white image. And you don't have to do this, but you can make yourself a color swatch so you can come back to your projects at later dates and always have the same colors. And like I said, you can get plenty of skin colors off of the internet that you can sample. So that is basically the end of this video. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.